Hello, this is Kaylin. Welcome to another video in the Orion TI-84 Talking Graphing Calculator series. Today I'm going to be experimenting with my uncooperative calculator to fix the problem of my calculator not talking. So the first thing that you should immediately do if you are having any calculator issues is you should change the batteries. This can be done by accessing this compartment, and this is also covered in the charging and batteries video that is otherwise in this series. Today we are going to have assumed that the person has already tried to replace these batteries, which I did earlier. These are brand new, beautiful AAA batteries. And this calculator is still not talking. Now, I know, because I asked a fully sighted assistant, that the screen is activating when the calculator is turned on. I will demonstrate this in a moment. First, please remove your cases. Now, let's say your screen is turned on. The screen activates, but the calculator does not talk. This is usually a sign that there is a disconnect between the calculator module and the Orion module, which is the talking bit. And the Orion module is charged by your power cord, while the calculator module is powered by the batteries, which again I covered in this other video. So your next thing is you're going to try plugging this in. I will demonstrate that here. Here's my little power cord. I'm going to slide this in. This is now making a buzzing sound. Now, if you hear this sound, this is usually an indication that there is something going wrong with this charging process. It's a very, very unpleasant sound, and there is definitely no talking happening here, which it will always talk when you plug it in. So, we know that there is definitely something wrong here. My next step is to perform what I call calculator surgery, and to disconnect this part, the Orion module, from the actual calculator in order to refresh the connection and see if there's any degradation going on inside there. So I'm going to take off this case and remove it from the field. Now I'm going to turn over my calculator, and I'm going to bring in my little surgery tools, in this case my lovely screwdrivers. Now, this is a set of pretty small screwdrivers. It has both the Phillips head and the flathead ones. I know from previous lovely experience that this Phillips head is a good fit for this calculator. And I'm going to be removing the screws on this back panel, again, to disconnect. Now, because these screws are very, very tiny, and again, being blind, I love to have a little tray available to put my screws in so they do not I'm trying to open this, so they do not roll away and get lost, because you cannot find replacements for this type of calculator on the market. I guarantee you finding screw replacements is very, very difficult. 5 seconds, this is being a little uncooperative. Hello, oh, there we go. Okay, so now that my little screw container is ready, and I have my Phillips head screwdriver, I am going to begin undoing the screws on the back panel. Now, the first 2 screws are going to be just above the battery compartment lever. That is this thing here. If you know that sound, you can push that back in, and that helps you do the batteries. Then you're going to feel a slight depression in the calculator, and then you're going to feel the seam between the 2 modules. And right above that, there's a little kind of shiny feeling sticker. You're going to find your 2 screws. Again, remember, lefty loosey, righty tighty, so you're going to pull your screwdriver left and slowly undo these little tiny annoying screws. And, well, it's kind of tricky to keep the Phillips head in there. Hold on. Yeah, 1 screw down. And then I'm going to do the other one. And I haven't had to do this in a little bit, so I don't recall if there are more, but we're gonna see if it will come apart just these 2, or if you have to do the ones on top as well. Just another second. This issue doesn't happen super often, but it has happened to me several times in class, so it's definitely worthwhile bringing screwdrivers with you if you ever have a really big, important class or a test where you need your calculator and you can't afford for it to be unoperative in that moment, because often this is a pretty easy fix that can be done in class. It usually gets a lot of fun stares from your classmates while you're taking apart your calculator with a screwdriver, but it's usually pretty easy to fix. Okay, and there's the second one into the little caddy. So now these two modules should be able to be pulled apart. I'm just going to put the screwdriver out of the way. So with a little tug, you can be a tiny bit rough with it during this bit. Voila! The modules have separated. So little cool thing, this is what the calculator for most people looks like without basically the regular TI-84 that doesn't have the talking portion. That's what this looks like. And then this section has some hookups that connect into this part. So now you should probably just be able to put it right back together, because hopefully this disconnect will have made it rethink its ways and kind of restart some of these processes. So what you can do now, before you even rescrew it, you can try pressing on. Hello, let's try off, and then on. Okay, well, it is still not talking. So the next step in this process is to try changing the Orion module's battery, which I will demonstrate in just a moment. So now that I have exhausted this possibility of this fixing the problem, we are going to try changing the Orion module's battery. This is located in this lovely compartment, meaning that we have to unscrew two more of these tiny little screws. They're located at the very, very top of the Orion module. First, I'm going to go for this rightmost screw. And again, lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. We are unscrewing. Let's hope this is easy and smooth. And gotcha! Now these screws are slightly different than the ones I took out of this bottom module. So I'm going to put them in a slightly different part of this little plastic thing so we don't get them mixed up. And then I'm doing the rightmost screw. And there we go. So now this little compartment will open. Let me see. Voila! This is the little nice orbit logo. So revealing this lovely battery inside. Now we are going to try to exchange these batteries. Hold on, let me see. Can remove this one. It's a little bit tricky because it's really only connected through one port. Hold on just a moment. See if I can use some gravity to help me out a little bit. Okay, so this battery is really only connected through one little port, and there are really no other connections on this battery. So I think your calculator will have come with a spare battery, which is right here in this little plastic bag. So I'm going to basically swap the batteries and then see if this works again. If not, we will look into other options. So I'm going to remove it from the plastic bag. It has basically the same setup, and we're going to replicate the exact same way it is plugged in. We're going to first delicately, very, very gently try and pull this out. There we go. It came out pretty easy. Now this is our dead battery, or presumably dead battery. And then we're going to try and plug this into the same port where we pulled that out. It's a little tricky because it's kind of deep in this calculator. This console here. Hold on. Bear with me here. And there we go. It's a little tricky to get placed just because of the weird angle here, but you should hear a click when it is fully installed. At this point, it is pretty much flat against the baseboard here, and you really only feel the wires coming out of it in a tiny lip at the top. If you notice there, for my fully sighted audience, For the blind audience who is watching this, I'm just going to give a brief description of the layout here. So when you remove this upper compartment at the very, very top of the back of the Orion module, it kind of feels like a depressed little cavity that's rectangular, and your battery that is in there is going to connect at the far right top of this area. You simply replicate exactly what the previous battery was doing, and once that is secured, you're going to just push the rest of the battery in around it. It can be pretty loose because, again, that is really its only connection to the calculator itself. It only has one plug-in point, unlike the AA and AAA batteries that connect on both sides in order to complete the circuit. So next, I'm going to push this in. And I'm just going to hold this in place because there's no point in screwing it in if you need to access it again. And I'm going to flip over the calculator. I'm going to try turning it on. Let's see if this works.
Home screen.
Yay! So this calculator is now operational again. It did switch back to the default voice, so I can always change this voice again in the preference menu settings, which is covered in the preferences menu video. But we fixed the problem. Thank you for coming with me on this journey.